Hey everyone, back today with another quick follow-up video to the video I put out yesterday on day 24 OSPF challenge from Cisco CCNA in 60 days. If you watched the video yesterday, we left off at kind of a puzzled moment because we couldn't get any pings to work between our two routers. And it was unclear why. I thought it might have been because of the way that we changed the router ID. Then you have to clear the OSPF process and it needs to boot back up. And I figured, there must be something going on there. So I researched that a bit. And like with most things, that was not the problem. The problem was basic configuration. So again, fundamentals, very important, and debugging really needs to start with your first steps and work up from there. And I'll show you exactly what I did wrong and why it didn't work, and then we'll make it work and finish up. So hopefully this will be a quick one. I'm going to go ahead and select the same two types of routers I did yesterday to keep things exactly the same. And remember, this was a serial line, so we're going to zoom in, turn the router off, plug in our HWIC, which is our two-port serial card. All right, so and then turn the router back on. And then again over here, same thing, zoom in, turn the router off, plug in our port and back on. And I guess I noticed they have these WIC covers, which apparently I guess you would use, well, you can't do it when it's powered on, but anyway, to block a port that you're not using. So anyway, that's an option. All right, so that was powered off and powered back on. Now we'll go over to our DCE cable and we'll plug in via 010 serial port. All right, that is now done. And just quickly going through this configuration up to the point that I screwed it up yesterday. Say no, enter. So we're gonna first of all configure IP addresses on each of these serial ports so that we can get some ping connectivity working right off the bat. Conf T, interface serial 010, IP address, and I believe they say 10.10.10.1/24. Just to confirm, 10.10.10.1, yes, all right, and that's a /24. And we do no shut to turn it on, although it's down now. Again, over here, CLI, EN, nope, no, EN, conf T, interface serial 010, IP address, and I think they say on this one, assign an IP address to the directly connected interfaces 10.10.10.2. Okay, so 10.10.10.2, and that's a /24. 0 and no shut, and now they should change to up. Now I expect connectivity to be present, so let's just try to ping, and you can see that they're up again. Exit out of here, do ping 10.10.10.2, and of course that works. All right, so that's good. Next up, we need to configure loopback interfaces and then turn on OSPF on both routers and allow them to exchange routes so that we can confirm that we can ping the loopback interfaces. So on the first router, we need to assign a loopback, create a loopback interface and assign address 11.11.11.1. So we're going to say interface loopback 0. That's already up, IP address 11.11.11.1, and that's going to be a /32, so 255.255.255.255. All right, and then the same thing over here. We're going to say exit out of that, interface loopback 0. I'm going to say IP address, and then it said 12.12.12.2, 12.12.12.2. 255.255.255.255, so /32. All right, and so that's that. Now we are, turn that down real quick. Configure standard OSPF process 1 and advertise all the local networks in area 0. Also configure a router ID for each device. So what I'm going to do is not do anything with the router ID because that is where things got kind of screwy yesterday. So I'll do that after the fact, but I want to show exactly what I did wrong yesterday. So we need to go into router configuration mode and we're going to configure OSPF process 1. All right, and then we got to issue a couple network commands. And so what I did yesterday was issued the first network command, which is for the 10.10.10 subnet /24 subnet. So I went 10.10.10.0 and then 0.0.0.255. So that's a /24 wildcard. So anything in the fourth octet is allowable. And that's for area 0. All right. Then next, because this is the mistake. I did network, and now we're on router 0, so we have that, remember, 11.11.11.1 loopback address. So I did 11.11.11.0 and then 0.0.0.0 because it's a /32, which means we only allow one specific address. That was not correct, so I'll just demonstrate that in area 0. All right, and then again on the other side. So this one is going to be, so we need to do router, OSPF, process ID 1. And again, we need to advertise the 10.10.10/24 network. So we will do that, network 10.10.10.0, and then anything in the fourth octet we'll allow, and then area 0. All right, and now, again, I did network. All right, so that's happening. So network 12.12.12.0. Again, this was a mistake. As I'm just looking at right here, and then I matched that with 0.0.0.0, and that was area 0. All right, so at this point yesterday, my expectation was that I would have connectivity and be able to ping from the loopback on router 0 to the loopback on router 1. So I'm going to just try that. And it looks like, they have a neighbor adjacency created. So that's interesting, but there's no ability to ping, and I'll show why in a moment. Do ping 12.12.12.2. Now that's going to fail. All right, so I'm like, okay, well, why is that failing? And if I look in the routing table in a moment here, once these pings finish, we will see do show IP route that there are no routes learned via OSPF. So basically the routing protocol that we're trying to implement right now is not working and no routes are being shared, although they have neighbor adjacencies set up. So that's interesting to me. And so I'm thinking, like, why aren't there any routes? And so I realized, kind of realized, looking back through what I had done, I wrote, you can see the line here. I advertised the network 11.11.11.0 on a /32 for area 0. Now that means that only address 11.11.11, specifically .0, will be, advertised or enabled, and only interfaces matching that are going to be enabled for OSPF. And that seems very specific, and it's not the address that we want, because the address configured on the port on the loopback is actually 11.11.11.1. So I was like, man, that seems odd. So let me try to expand the wildcard a bit to allow for at least a few hosts. So I'm going to say in that fourth octet, network 11.11.11.0, fine. or even I could just do 11.1 maybe. I'm going to do that here, live as we go. Okay, so I'm going to specify the exact address that I want to advertise, and I'm going to give it a 255, or give it a, what do you call it? A /32 wildcard. It's not, I guess it's the equivalent of a /32 wildcard. So it's saying, okay, only advertise this specific address, area 0. And I suspect this will work. So I've done that. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And so I'm already still in router configuration mode there. I'm going to say 12.12.12.2, only advertise that address. All right, and now if I go back and I do, let me exit out of this, do show IP route, will we have a route learned via OSPF? And yes, we will. Okay, so OSPF is now running on that serial 010 port, and it is advertising, it has a route to 12.12.12.2. So now I should be able to do ping 12.12.12.2, and it works. Okay, so that's where we got stuck yesterday. Now instead of course, this is very specific. Let's say, we're only advertising the one single address. If I were to say, for example, change this back to 0 and put this as a /24 255, that means any address in the 4th octet would be fine. So just keep that in mind. Basically, it's like basic subnetting. And I got that wrong, which prevented OSPF from advertising a route, which prevented a route from being placed into my routing table, which prevented me from being able to ping the other router. So just interesting to keep in mind. The rest of this lab, there's a bunch of basically stuff just to get you used to using different commands, which I've used throughout the couple videos here. So I'll just show a couple of them. Do show IP route, which of course we just looked at. It says you run that to confirm that you've got routes learned via OSPF, and we can see that via this O here, which if we look up here is indicative of OSPF being responsible for placing this route in the routing table, or generating the route maybe. Another one, do show IP protocols. Again, which routing protocols are running on the router, and it shows you different route information. The networks being advertised are 12.12.12.0 and 12.2 addresses, or all of the 10.10.10.0 subnet. So there's that. Do show IP OSPF, let's see, do show IP OSPF interface. All right, and we've got a point-to-point network. I guess that's just 2 hosts. I need to learn more about the network types because that's something that's in there. The hello timer is important to know. The dead timer, how long they are. Usually the dead timer is 4 times the hello timer. When the next hello is due, etc. All right, so that's useful to have. IP interface brief is a possibility, and that just gives us a more brief view into what's going on there. Notice the serial interface has a cost of 64. The loopback has a cost of 1, so the loopback clearly costs less. Another one to look at is if we go onto an interface like serial O/1/0, we can actually configure IP OSPF. We can configure the hello and dead intervals. So say hello interval and give it, let's say, make it 20 seconds. All right, and the same thing with the dead interval, typically 4x the hello, so we would make it 80 seconds. So that's something you can change and manipulate. Show IP, do show, let me get out of this. Do show IP OSPF 1. And I was curious if this one would show the hello and dead timers, but I don't see that it has, or that it does, or maybe I'm just like not seeing this. Now this is interesting. I changed those hello and dead timers, and I think because I made them longer than the previous one had hit, it thinks that the neighbor is down. So just kind of interesting to see how that works. What else? So yeah, issue a show IP OSPF 1 command, blah, blah. Now it says repeat the lab, but this time advertise the networks in OSPF using the IP OSPF 1 area 0 interface specific command instead of the network command under the router OSPF. So let me just jump into that. I'm not going to actually redo the whole lab, but if I go to interface serial 010 and I say IP OSPF 1 question mark area 0, give it a 0. All right, and then what are my options here? Area 0, okay. Now this is some kind of configuration. So if I say interface, no. Oh, I see. The way that it's worded on this step for the lab, it's in like italics, so it looks like it's supposed to be meant. But basically, you can go onto an interface in interface configuration mode and enable OSPF on that interface using IP OSPF, the process, the area, and that will just enable it on that interface specifically versus going and using the network command like we did in router configuration mode to capture any interface that falls within this network or falls within this wild card, I guess you could say. So just there are multiple ways, at least two, maybe one more, to say, hey, run the OSPF process on this interface. There are a couple ways to assign that to the interface, and what they're saying at the end there is just you could just go into interface configuration mode and enable it that way as well. All right, well, that is the end of the lab. That was actually, it was not, I guess it was about as complicated as I thought it was going to be, but it was a good lesson in debugging, and clearly sometimes things go wrong that are totally unrelated to what you are working on. And I guess the way I enabled those networks the first time was not totally unrelated, but it was just, yeah, you got to have a good attention to detail, that's for sure. So that was the end of day 24 for this book. I think the next video I do will be the lab for day 25, and then we have the kind of the challenge lab for day 26. So a bit more to go. I'll probably be back with at least 2 or 3 more videos doing labs like this for OSPF, just to really solidify it before I move on to other things. So yeah, that's it. Everybody have a good day. Thanks for joining. Again, thanks to the now 10 subscribers. Very excited about that. Yeah, I just appreciate it, and this has been a lot of fun, and I'm just going to keep going. So have a good day. Have a good week. Thank you.